What if Megadeth was a polka band? Find out on this week's What If, How, When, Why. Hello, my name is Morgan Brown, and for the past few months I've been making a series of videos that I call What If videos. Each week I take a different popular song and imagine an alternative universe in which a different set of circumstances or a decision that someone's made cause that song to come out completely different from the version that we know and love. I then take the original lead vocal and record my own backing track to it using just GarageBand and whatever instruments I have to hand in order to realise this alternative universe version of the song. So this week the song I took on was Hangar 18 by Megadeth, and I did my very best to turn that into a polka song. If you haven't had a chance to listen to it yet, it sounds a little bit like this. This is the first time that one of these videos that I've made has been in a response to viewer requests. I've been asking at the end of each of these videos if anyone has any suggestions, and people haven't been too forthcoming, but over on my Facebook page, one of my regular viewers, who will remain nameless, got in touch to complain in the strongest possible terms that I hadn't covered Megadeth yet. So I asked what style he'd like to hear Megadeth in, and made a few suggestions, not thinking for a second that anyone would take them seriously. And another viewer, who shall also remain nameless, pitched in to request Polka. So I thought, well, having actually asked for people to suggest things, I can't now not do this, so I'll give it my very best shot. I'm happy to take a look at Megadeth anyway. My association with Megadeth goes back a long way. When I first got into metal, I guess I kind of got into hard rock stuff first, Van Halen, AC/DC, and then heard One by Metallica, got the single of that. I think I got Kill 'Em All next on cassette, but then shortly after that, I became aware that there was this band called Megadeth. I think just because I'd been looking for Metallica albums and I'd seen them there next to them in the racks. Oh, that's an amazing band name. So was quite eager to dive in and find out what that was all about. My mum, who was a German teacher, I got taken along on one of her school trips to Hamburg, and I think possibly in the same flea market in Hamburg I found both a cassette of So Far So Good So What, which was the newest Megadeth album at the time, and also an LP of Killing Is My Business and Business Is Good, the debut album, and they just blew my mind. Absolutely amazing. I think at the time I wasn't aware that Dave Mustaine had previously been a member of Metallica. I hadn't really started reading heavy metal magazines. There wasn't the internet at the time to find out information about bands. So I didn't really make that connection until I put on Killing Is My Business and heard the song Mechanics, and I was like, hang on a second, this is just the Four Horsemen with different words. And then obviously looked at the songwriting credits and the credits on Kill 'Em All, and I was like, okay. I realised that Dave Mustaine had also co-written some of the other Metallica songs, and it all kind of started to come together. But yeah, without that association, I was just listening to Megadeth on their own merits, and I thought it was pretty amazing. I think one of the things that probably held them back from ever quite attaining that Metallica level of commercial success was Dave Mustaine's voice. It's a pretty strange singing voice, and not one that you can imagine really ever quite translating to full mainstream acceptance. I mean, if you listen to Metallica, James Hetfield kind of grew into his voice, and by the time the Black Album's released, he does kind of sound like a mainstream rock singer. There's a sort of hearty, rich gruffness about it that I think works quite well in a kind of mainstream rock context, whereas Dave Mustaine was just never going to have that. However, as a kid, I really enjoyed his voice. It kind of sounds like a cartoon villain, sneering, kind of snarling, over-the-top, evil sort of voice, which I really enjoyed. Plus, the playing on all of those records was always amazing. Incredible guitar solos, all the guitarists they had. I mean, obviously Marty Friedman later on is widely celebrated, but Chris Poland and Jeff Young as well, both fantastic, and Dave Mustaine, no slouch in that department either. Because of that Metallica association, they've always been viewed a little bit by, particularly by critics, but also probably by some fans, as being the sort of poor cousin to Metallica in a way, always riding on Metallica's coattails. But by the time of 1990's Rust in Peace, I think just at that point, it's probably fair to say that they weren't really riding Metallica's coattails anymore. That album, it's just a bit after Metallica released Injustice for All. I know a lot of people love that album. I certainly enjoy it too. But I think there's an argument to be made that Rust in Peace is actually a more successful album. It has similar level of musical accomplishment and complexity, but those songs are great. The production's great, it sounds powerful, the playing's absolutely phenomenal, but it's got a level of accessibility alongside the complexity, which I don't think Injustice for All has. Plus, I know it has its defenders, but always been a bit turned off by the sound of Injustice for All. It's not just the lack of bass, which has been well documented, but the whole thing sounds a bit flat and clinical to me. The drums are dead. There's not really much of the kind of power and bombast that I look for in metal music in that recording. So I think just at that point, back in 1990, Megadeth were really just for once actually on the cusp of just edging ahead of Metallica. And that's just shortly after I became a fan. So it was a really exciting time to be a fan of Megadeth. But bought that album, got the single of Holy War's The Punishment Due with the fold out poster sleeve, which went straight on my wall. Sadly, I don't have that anymore. And then when Hangar 18 came out, I bought the 12-inch single, which it's a fun one. It's got a cut out Vic Rattlehead mask, which somehow I managed to resist the urge to cut out the mask, so I can show it to you today, thankfully. And then, of course, as we know, the year after that, Metallica released the Black Album, and again, that just put them far ahead commercially of all their other big four contemporaries out of the thrash wave. And Megadeth, I guess, were left with the choice of whether to try and follow them into a more commercial direction or to just go off and do their own thing. And you can definitely see from Countdown to Extinction and Euthanasia, they did try and at least to some extent take the route of going in a more commercial direction with some success. But for me, that's where they kind of started to tail off. But yeah, I think the fact of Megadeth always having this struggle to be perceived on their own merits rather than being compared to Metallica is what got me thinking of my alternative universe story behind this version of Hangar 18 that I've done. So I figured in this alternative universe, if we go back to 1984-85, so Dave Mustaine's been ejected from Metallica after allegedly kicking James Hetfield's dog or whatever the story is. And so he starts his new band and they're gradually building up a following in the local metal scene. It's going pretty well, but finds it disheartening that they keep getting reviews and the reviews are always just comparing them to Metallica. And it gets to 1985, they're due to start recording their debut album, but he's just kind of had it with the constant Metallica comparisons. I think he thinks if we carry on as a metal band just doing the same kind of music Metallica are doing, we're never going to escape these comparisons. So he thinks drastic measures are needed. We're going to have to change musical style completely. Not sure what style to change to, but he flicks on the TV one night and there's a new TV movie comes on, The Last Polka. I don't know if you've seen The Last Polka. I only became aware of it fairly recently, but it's a mock documentary from 1985 written by and starring John Candy and Eugene Levy. And it's pretty funny. It's a parody of the band's The Last Waltz, I guess, but based on a polka act who've been really popular. Kind of a great missing link between, I guess, Spinal Tap and then the films that Eugene Levy went on to make with Christopher Guest, like A Mighty Wind and things like that. So well worth checking that out, but I digress. So Dave Mustaine sees this and he's chuckling away at it, but at the same time he's hearing the music and thinking, oh, polka. It's fast music like the music we've been playing in Megadeth, and it seems to require quite a high level of musicianship like the music we've been playing in Megadeth, and maybe there wouldn't be much competition for the world's state-of-the-art polka band. So that decides it for him. We're going to scrap metal, we're going to become a polka act. Forms a new lineup of Megadeth entirely devoted to playing polka, and they set to work building a following and soon gets a reputation for being the hot, young, exciting band on the polka scene, bringing in a new, young, rowdy crowds of polka fans, culminating in their landmark LP, Rust in Polka, featuring Marty Friedman, who in this universe is an accordion virtuoso. So polka music, it's something that I must admit I don't know a massive amount about. Obviously, I'm a bit of a fan of Weird Al Yankovic, and that's probably where a lot of people hear Polka these days, with his medleys of current hits in polka style. So I'm familiar with that, but otherwise I've seen that Jack Black movie, The Polka King, about a true story of a real-life polka musician who also ran a Ponzi scheme, which is fairly entertaining. But I just thought I'd have a little look around the internet, see what I could find, listen to some stuff, including Weird Al's namesake, Frankie Yankovic. No relation, but who was a big polka star in the States. As far as I can gather, polka originated in Bohemia, now sort of part of the Czech Republic, or Czechia as you like, back in the early to mid 1800s, became popular and kind of spread through Europe. And then with waves of immigration has been spread to the US. So there's several different big polka scenes in the Midwest, I think, like Chicago, Cleveland, several sort of different ethnic kind of polka variants coexisting in the US as well. So Polish style polka and Bohemian style polka. I think down in Texas you get Mexican variants of polka music as well. Quite a wide variety of sub-styles, all with slightly different instrumentation. I didn't want to get too specific with my version of this Megadeth song, so I just aimed for sort of something somewhere in between. So took Dave's original vocal, synced it up to the tempo grid in GarageBand, programmed some drums on there, just a fairly straight ahead 2/4 polka beat. The original record has an instrumental section at the end, which goes to a half-time but sped up feel. And I figured polka, we don't want to go half-time in any way, shape or form. So I just, instead of going half-time then speeding up, I just sped up. So after Dave's vocal finishes, the tempo jumps up and then keeps going up towards the end of the record on my version. I should also say I cut out loads of instrumental from the original record, because I think Megadeth's version, it's like 2 minutes of singing and then 3 minutes of incredible guitar solos, and there was no way I was going to try and replicate that in polka form, so kept the instrumental very much cut down. The instrumentation I used, it's pretty much all software instruments, either from GarageBand's own files of instruments or from the Spitfire Audio BBC SO Discovery Pack, which I've mentioned before in these videos, and I use for a lot of stuff. So what we've got on there, I've got a tuba playing the bass, we've got clarinet, trumpet, and trombone. And then I didn't have an accordion sound. I couldn't find a good accordion plugin either. But after mooching around the internet, I found a suggestion on Reddit that you could create a similar sound to an accordion on GarageBand using a blend of, I think it's toy melodica, and Chimera Bells, which is a synth sound. And I tried that and it sounds pretty accordion-ish. So I've got two lots of accordion parts using those two sounds blended together. I've got a rhythm one just playing a kind of umpar chordal rhythm, and then a lead one which takes some solos and does some melodic stuff as well. And then I've also got a couple of lead parts being played by the clarinet, because the clarinet's quite prominent in a lot of polka music that I've listened to. The only actual acoustic instrument that I used on this recording was, I wanted to have a tenor banjo, because that's a thing I've heard in quite a lot of polka records that I had a bit of a listen to. I don't own one, so I couldn't do that, but I do have a ukulele banjo, which I've had for years. So just laid down a bit of a chordal rhythm with that, just bashing away in the background, and that just adds a nice extra bit of texture to it. It's quite good fun trying to orchestrate something that's obviously just written for a thrash metal band for such a completely different set of instruments. At the very start and the end, I added a little quote from Entrance of the Gladiators, which I guess most people associate with the circus, so I wasn't making any particular circus allusions. It just popped into my head, and I thought it was quite a funny little touch, so that ties the whole track together, having that there at the start and the end as well, so thought that was quite fun. And then for the video, I found some decent footage of Megadeth themselves playing the song back in the early 90s, and mixed that in with some footage of a polka band that had approximately the right instrumental makeup for what I've got on the record, and then intersperse that with some crowd shots from the Megadeth show and then some Bavarian polka dancers doing their thing as well. And it is what it is. Hopefully it's amused a few people. So yeah, I certainly had loads of fun learning about polka music and trying to figure out how to orchestrate a song for a polka band. I also really just enjoyed having to work with the prompts that I was given by viewers. So thanks for that, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you've got any other things that you'd like me to take a look at, any genres, any artists, or any songs that you'd like me to take on, please do just drop them in the comments. That would be great. I enjoyed this one. But yeah, that's all from me for this week. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.